Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another Webinar Wednesday with the First Nations Public Service Secretariat. My name is Selena Dorme. I'm from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation here in North Vancouver, but I also want to recognize our neighboring nations also here on this unceded territory of the Musqueam and Squamish peoples. Today's webinar is working remotely with staff. This 45-minute session will include a short presentation outlining some of the challenges, solutions, and opportunities of working with staff from virtual offices at this time. We have two wonderful speakers with us today. We have Robin Henry, the Director of Human Resources at Namgis First Nation, and Cathy Murphy, the Human Resources Advisor at Fort Nelson First Nation. So thank you both so much for joining us. So happy to have you here. I think it's going to be a really great discussion. I believe we're going to start off with you, Robin, so I'll just go ahead and let you take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Selena. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. I think it's a wonderful thing that the Secretariat is doing with all the First Nations in BC, and we're all approaching this pandemic from maybe somewhat different perspectives. And this gives us the opportunity to share information so we can all do things together consistently and all that wonderful stuff. So I really appreciate this, Selena. Thank you. Cathy, Webster and I are going to kind of play off each other today. So it's going to kind of be interactive, and we're going to talk about the challenges, solutions, opportunities, that kind of thing, and that's how we're going to do it today. So just briefly, who I am: I'm the Director of HR for Namgis First Nation. I'm a First Nations individual from the Yukon Territory. I've been doing this HR thing for a long time, so I'm happy to share the little that I know with you today. Thanks.
And thank you. I'll jump in. My name is Cathy Murphy. I'm the Human Resources Advisor for Fort Nelson First Nation. I've been working for Fort Nelson First Nation since 2012, and I have been their Human Resources Advisor since 2013. And I want to say thank you to the First Nations Public Service Secretariat for offering this opportunity today. And I also want to say thank you to Robin Henry for allowing me to be his, what I consider junior co-presenter, and look forward to presenting to you today. And certainly we are dealing with challenging times, and working remotely with staff presents a new challenge for a lot of workplaces. A lot of workplaces haven't been in a position where they've had to have staff work remotely before. So it presents challenges not only for the staff, but as well for the managers. And so that's what we'll be discussing here today. And Robin and I have been having some conversations about this ahead of time. And so Robin, I'm going to pass it back to you now to start the facilitation.
Why, thank you. So I like this this format because we talk about challenges, solutions, and opportunities, and the biggest challenge, obviously, is this is new to most of us, right? Some of us work in areas where there's been flooding and forest fires and different things like that. So some of us get a taste of that, but this is brand new. This is an highly infectious disease that's impacted a lot of people here in Alert Bay. It's a small community of about 1,000 people. Well, so far we've had 30 confirmed cases of the COVID, and we've lost a community member because of that. So it is extremely serious. It's incumbent upon us as employers to ensure that the workplaces are safe for our people, and secondly, that they feel safe. So part of how we're addressing this is, and a lot of First Nations are already doing it, is allowing people to work from home for their own safety as well as for the safety of the greater community. But the challenge is, well, how do we do that? It's brand new. We're all used to sitting around in offices, right? Well, not sitting around, working in offices, right? We're all used to doing that. And we're used to seeing the people we work with and our supervisors and people like that. We're used to seeing them every day, and we get to ask questions and get direction. Sometimes access is instantaneous. All that sort of stuff is kind of murky when we work from home. Myself, I'm working from home 3 days a week. And my commute is, well, it's about 30 seconds from here by foot. But so I'm one of the lucky ones. But one of the problems I've already experienced from working from home is information. So unless we're equipped properly with the latest technology, computers, laptops, applications like Zoom and team meetings and Google Share, all that kind of wonderful stuff. Sometimes it's a little bit murky. So one of the things that when you talk about the challenges, and then so I work from home, and then how does my boss know that I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and not just sitting in front of the TV watching Judge Judy? Okay, so there has to be a level of trust when we do this sort of thing. We make these decisions where you as supervisors will be asked to provide your staff with a much higher level of autonomy to do what they need to do. So what we need to do then is, how do we resolve this one? Well, the first thing we need to do is ensure that the people who are working from home have clear, specific direction from you. It's extremely important that they have a clear understanding of what you expect on a daily basis, okay? Cathy's going to jump in and talk to you a little bit about what that could look like, but I'm just going to finish my piece about that, about giving clear direction. That's typically in writing. You want to ensure that the people who are working from home have they share a common understanding with you about what's expected. I look for tangible results for people who are working from home. So it could be by way of a report. It could be an end of day report. It could be a check-in the following morning. It could be check-ins at the beginning, the end of the week. It depends on the level of autonomy you're giving your folks and the level of trust that you have with each individual who's working from home. So we talk about that, solutions, tangible results. Let me talk, productivity is not going to be as high as you might want it to be. And you need to be patient with that. With your folks, we're all living under a high level of stress. I made a post on LinkedIn the other day about the mental health aspects of this. So the other solution then is that this gives us an opportunity to connect more on a personal level with the folks working from home, to ask how people are doing, right? How's the family? How's grandma? How's Junior? How's everything? How's working from home? Is it working for you? Is there anything I need to do to support you to do your job to the best of your ability from home? A few of the obstacles that we have, again, is lack of information, but there's all kinds of stuff in the home that impact what we're asked to do. So we have baby needs to be fed, right? Elder whomever needs lunch. Somebody's ringing the doorbell, or my favorite soap opera's on, right? I'm just kidding, but there's all kinds of interruptions that we need to be cognizant of as managers, and we need to temper our expectations in that regard. So support is a really big piece, not just for equipment and information and things like that, but moral support as we all work through this. Communicating. Extremely important, and like I just kind of talked about briefly, is checking in. Being accessible is another thing. I've had a few folks already here at Namgis talk about, well, sorry, I was out, I missed your phone call. Well, part of the purpose of allowing people to work from home is to limit the transmission of the COVID. And so if our people are being allowed to work from home, first of all, we expect them to be home working. But we want them to be accessible, right? So whether that's by telephone, by email, by Zoom meeting, whatever it is, we need to ensure that our folks know that they're obligated to be accessible while they're working from home, and they're on the clock. So we don't expect to see them, like I have, certain people walking around downtown Alert Bay. Downtown Alert Bay, such as it is, because it's very small. So there's a few obstacles that we need to be very cognizant of. Do you want to talk a little bit about reporting, Cathy?
Yeah, so I think, you know, you touched on some really great points, Robin, and I know for us at Fort Nelson First Nation, for our remote workers, we've been in the process of putting some temporary remote work assignments in place. And so what that means is, you know, on paper, formalizing the process and setting out the expectations, you know, the expectations, having conversations with employees, you know, what are the expectations of the employees for remote work from home, you know, work that they haven't done from home before, and what are the expectations of the employer? So having dialogue between supervisors and employees about what that looks like for the employee who has to work from home, and also recognizing that working from home can be difficult for workers. You know, their workers are away from their coworkers who, you know, serve as support. We have to look at new ways of, you know, approaching those peer support systems. And, you know, we have people who are going to be uncomfortable to work from home if they're dealing with interruptions. So again, like you mentioned, you know, elder care, child care, and then, as you mentioned, productivity is not going to look the same. So we need to look at flexible schedule arrangements. And so what does it look like for that worker now to be working from home? And what is their schedule from home going to look like? Is the employer going to expect them to be available regular business hours, core business hours, or is there room for flexibility? You know, if parents have to homeschool, then is it realistic that an employer can expect the employee to work regular business hours? So there are lots of considerations. No two people are alike, no two employers are alike, no two homes are alike, no two home offices are going to be alike. So the other thing is having, you know, a very honest discussion about what the risk assessment is going to look like, and making certain that employees are aware of and understand their obligations for maintaining a safe space in the home for their home office. So employers, you know, the supervisor having that discussion with their employee with respect to risk assessment. So that's very important as well. And when we look at the deliverables, so the accountability factors, so as Robin mentioned, there's a lot of autonomy when you're working from home, but there's also the reality that you have to be available and accessible during the times that you've committed to be available and accessible. And so then we need to look at the deliverables. So we need to look at some way of tracking and checking in. So checking in, you know, from the supervisor perspective with the employee, making certain that employees have what they need, that they are available, and then also the management aspect of it, you know, from tracking, the work deliverables. So what we've implemented is a daily work log, and you know, we're not looking for finite detail in our daily work logs. We're looking for, you know, the broad goals, the broad assignments and whatnot, just so that we know what employees are working on. And, you know, so that they can track their work as well, because each day there will be, you know, new things added to the tasks and the list will grow. And so eventually, you know, an employee may have more tasks on their list than they can reasonably complete in a day. So then it's a matter of prioritizing and whatnot. So establishing the expectations, determining the modified work, what it's going to look like, determining modified schedules, addressing the OH&S component, because the home now, or a portion of the home office now becomes a place that you need to apply your OH&S policies to, and of course the accountability factor. So putting in place a temporary telework agreement for the life of the remote working assignment is important, and putting in place, you know, a day log or some other method of following the production, the work production of the employees. And then Robin and I had a really good discussion about this, actually, determining the equipment requirements. And so things like, you know, what does the employee require to be able to work from home? Do they need a laptop? Do they need a cell phone, printer, paper, ink? You know, does IT need to be involved in these setups? Or, you know, was the employee already in possession of a laptop and access before that. So Robin, would you like to speak a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, working from home again, besides the interruptions and things like that, and trying to walk around in your slippers and your house coat, that takes getting used to. What we want to ensure also when we're talking about working from home and equipment, and we're signing out company-owned equipment and things like that, is that people are signing off on this sort of stuff. Safety is a big issue, okay? We don't want someone sitting on the edge of the bathtub with a laptop plugged in, for example. So what we want to ensure is that people have a place to work. And it doesn't mean we have to retrofit someone's house to put in a desk and all that kind of stuff. What it means, though, is that we want to make sure that our people understand that they have to follow safe work habits just like they would in the office. So that's a big piece. I just want to turn the page because I think we have 5 minutes left or something. I'm not sure what the total is, but
Yeah.
when we talk about solutions, I highly recommend a policy, and it could be a temporary policy for working from home. It could be as little as 1 page. Cathy kindly developed some templates that for use that we're going to share with you, but we'll talk about those details at the end. But a policy is really important, and it's important so that people have an understanding of what the employer's expectations are for working from home, and includes all the stuff that we're talking about today. So policy, and what that does is that helps us be consistent on how we're managing this. I've already had experience with some people in my First Nation here where some people have been allowed to work from home and some others haven't, and they question why. So those are morale issues that we need to be sure to address. So consistent policy and consistent application of a policy is a solution also for working at home. When we talk about opportunities, and I like this, I don't like to say this is a burden to the nation, because this could be the new normal. And I think it will be the new normal for some time. And I'm even talking months, in my personal opinion, that this could turn that way. There's lots of larger companies now who are kind of liking people working from home because it reduces overhead and things like that. So this thing is starting to take a life of its own. We know that this COVID, though, is the implications behind it, and then talking about another wave in the fall and things like that. This is the new normal. So we need to learn as we go. We need to refine our practices as we go. But what this is, it's an opportunity for us to build capacity. It will teach people technology. We're learning this stuff as we go. People who are using Zoom now haven't used it before. People who are participating in team meetings and things like that haven't done it before. So this is a really good opportunity for us to kind of catch up to where technology is going these days. We talked before about in some of the secretariat workshops that if we don't embrace this technology, we're going to be left behind. So this is a really good opportunity to build capacity. It allows us to build, you provide a certain level of autonomy to your staff, and you have these regular communication meetings with them. That builds accountability. And I really love that. It builds accountability from you as a band administrator, let's say, and it builds accountability for the employee who is accountable to you and by extension to the nation for their time. It also compels us to do other stuff. We need now a business continuity plan, don't we? So I had discussions with the band administrator here about a BCP, a business continuity plan. What are we going to do? Well, now we're already sorting that out. So out of this, then it's a learning opportunity for us to come out of this potentially with a brand new policy for whatever events. Out here, we're vulnerable to tsunamis. If there's ever a major earthquake, we have a tsunami plan in place, right? We did not have a plan in place for something like this. So BCP, that sort of stuff, it's all really wonderful, wonderful stuff. Cathy, anything to add?
Oh, sorry, Robin. I'm just going to jump in really quickly before I hand it back over to Cathy. We have about 5 questions submitted in the queue, and we'll have about 25 minutes to answer those questions, which we'll definitely get through all of your 5 questions. So I'm encouraging you to submit more so we have a little bit more to bounce off our wonderful panelists. And then, Cathy, I'll hand it over to you to talk about some of the templates and stuff you have available for people afterwards.
Absolutely. So some of the templates that I have available are, I have a slideshow, and so I will provide you with that slideshow. It's just a piece that people can take back to their desk and review in terms of working remotely, and some of the questions, that we're asking during this time, and some of the things that we need to think about. As well, I do have some templates. So I do have a temporary remote work template that employers could use with their employees, as sort of addresses the items that need to be addressed for working from home, as well as various things with respect to OH&S. These are things also that people can look for on the WorkSafe BC website. So for instance, you'll want to review workstations with your employees, things like neutrals and 90s, making certain that people are sitting in ergonomic positions and working with ergonomics while they're working from home. They're not going to have their ergonomic chairs at home, but I'm sure that there are things that they can modify and put in place so that ergonomics are in place. Things as well like the 20-20-20 rule, right? So looking away from your screen for 20 minutes, looking 20 feet away for 20 seconds, I believe is the rule. And so I can share some of those things. And I also have a template that my employer has approved me to release, which is our emergency office closure policy template that we're now using with respect to this closure, and we'll be able to use it moving forward as well. So I've set that to a generic template, and I'll be able to share that as well. And I think also, just going back to really quickly the opportunities coming out of this, and what Robin was saying with respect to technology, is being able to use things now with your teams, like Google Drive and the Google Sheets and Google Video, and these sorts of things. We're now using Zoom Webinar, and just the work from home, working differently, and including some online training in that, and allowing employees that opportunity to do some learning and development from home at this point in time, to fill some of those work hours as well, because the work is different at this point in time.
Yeah, for those of you, Cathy, maybe explain to people what the 20-20-20 rule is.
Yeah, so the 20-20-20 rule is every 20 minutes, an individual sitting in front of a computer screen. So after 20 minutes of sitting in front of the computer screen, you should look 20 feet away for 20 seconds. And that's just so that, to reduce eye strain. And, everyone is going to approach work from home differently. And some people are probably going to be consumed with projects and assignments, and they're going to sit down in front of that computer screen, and they're going to stay there, probably for an hour or more. So it's important to remember to take breaks, take frequent breaks, hydrate, keep your nutrition well balanced, and and participate in some stretching and whatnot throughout the day, and the 20-20-20 rule to reduce eye strain as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really
Sorry.
good advice, Cathy. I just want to finish with this. Then it sounds like we're running out of time. Is that make sure that the people at home understand that they take breaks as normal. You stare out the window for a few minutes, you stretch, you go for a little walk, maybe run around the house a couple of times. Mindfulness is important too. We have so much going on. Our employees have so much going on in their heads because of what's going on. There's worry, there's stress, there's confusion, there's all kinds of stuff. And so if you can help your folks with practicing some mindfulness meditation techniques, which I'd be happy to share with you, just let me know if you want some information on that with Selena, and we'd be happy to share. But that part of it too, from working at home, is be sure to look after yourself. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Such valuable information right now, as it's just a very uncertain time working from home. Out right now, a couple minutes ago, so hopefully you can hear me and everything is fine. We're going to move on to the questions. The first, either both of you can answer, or it's really up to you. Do your staff have work cell phones, or do you have really good cell phone service, I guess, in your specific communities?
Good question. So a good majority of our staff have cell phones. They're typically frontline service workers, managers, supervisors have cell phones, and the cell phone service in Fort Nelson is good. Robin, do you want to speak to that as well?
Yeah, with all due respect to the folks at Shaw and telecommunication companies like that, the service here is dodgy at best. I live in the Teach-Ridge, so it's kind of down a little hill, and Alert Bay is kind of a hilly little island. And my work cell phone coverage at home is non-existent. So what I have at home is my personal cell phone as well. So I get a small allowance for that, for working from home. And if need be, you should, financial situations taken into consideration, if you can provide people with those sorts of tools to be able to work and communicate from home. Yes, cell phones, laptops, that sort of stuff. If you do that sort of stuff, make sure it's in policy that these things are meant to sign out. So that sort of stuff too.
The next question is, I've noted that some managers and supervisors are better at checking in with staff than others. Some seem to think as long as they ask the entire group and no one answers, everything is okay. How do you ensure that there are ways for staff to engage with you to make sure that they are okay and they feel comfortable coming to you when they're not?
Yeah, that's the importance of communicating on a regular basis. So whether it's check-ins, and I like the idea of check-ins, whether it's in the mornings or the evening or the afternoons of each day or every couple of days, but the regularly scheduled check-ins. It also requires the supervisor, the band administrator, whomever it might be, to be accessible as well, by telephone, by email, by Zoom, whatever. And consistent application of that.
Right.
Yeah, and I think also maintaining the group meetings as well. Like I know for us at Fort Nelson First Nation, we now are using Zoom, and the supervisors are using Zoom for their daily, weekly team meetings, but also have processes in place for checking in with staff on a daily basis as well. And so I think as long as you establish what the process is, and the expectations are clear, and both parties are adhering to it, that's what's important. So I think the clear communications and clear expectations about how that's going to unfold.
Great, thank you. For the both of you, just so to provide some context to our attendees, if you don't mind telling us about how many staff you do have, and or like per a manager, maybe how many people they are managing individually.
Yeah,
go ahead, Cathy.
Okay, so we have approximately 70 indeterminate employees, so permanent employees, and on an annual basis, we employ about 120 workers, so that includes our seasonal and our students as well. And so right now, there are some employees for whom no work was available during this pandemic crisis. And so our numbers are down a little, but we still have all of our department managers are in place and managing teams, and teams range in size, I would say, from about 5 to maybe 15 in a team, depending on the department. So some of the teams are large.
Yeah, the same thing at Namgis. We have about, including part-times and casuals, we have about 80 staff. and we're split into 4 larger departments, administration, all that kind of stuff. The smallest department is HR, which is a department of 1, and that'd be me. And and our largest group is our probably our health department, which is made up probably of about 30 people. So yeah, big and small.
Thank you so much. The next question is, are you providing training online for using technology? What kind of follow-up to ensure that they're actually effective, whether it be Zoom or Microsoft Teams or anything like that?
We have not, although we provide people with some equipment, and we have outfitted some folks' homes with the necessary equipment to do their jobs, but we're not at a point yet where we're evaluating the efficiency and effectiveness of this stuff. We will towards the end. What we do ask though is that if an individual is experiencing any issues or technical issues or anything like that, that they let us know as soon as possible.
Yeah, and our situation is similar. I would say, with respect to Zoom, we've had what I call, Zoom play dates. We get on Zoom, we have a meeting on Zoom, and then we just learn how to use Zoom as a group together, and we explore the functionality of it. And that's been really helpful. So it's just been, prior to a meeting or whatever, or after a meeting, just exploring the functionality of those applications.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what are the solutions in dealing with staff who you see around town during the work from home hours and continues to provide challenges for the manager to address? Other options? Do you have a draft policy that you can possibly share on that?
So
carry on. Yep.
Sorry, I'm going to get you to repeat that question. So they're supposed to be working in there around town during work hours?
Yes.
Right. And so then that would be handled under the disciplinary policy that the employer would have in place.
What I'm going to add to that though is that it's really important when we started this talk today is about having those clear expectations. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously a misunderstanding out there from our staff about what's expected of them. Some people are treating it as a mini holiday. So it's really clear that we need to be able to tell these folks that you're at home, you're expected to be at home, you're expected to be available, accessible. We want to see some productivity, and in the absence of the failure of that happening, we will hold you to account. We're not necessarily going to discipline you, but we will strongly remind you of your responsibilities to the nation while being paid to work from home, and it doesn't include standing in line at the McDonald's to get a Big Mac, unless you're on lunch, right? But it's a really good thing. So what we can do though, besides discipline, is we can call back hours. If we remind someone about their obligations and they refuse to follow our direction, we can hold them to account for that. Mm-hmm. For these periods of time, you will not be paid. We can have those discussions for sure. And I strongly encourage that. Mm-hmm. Some people, unfortunately, some of our folks are taking full advantage of this, right? So that's the necessity of having policies and things like that, and maybe a working from home policy, because it clears that sort of stuff up.
Right. Thank you so much. The next question is, do you have a process in place to review overtime hours claims made by employees working from home?
So for us at Fort Nelson First Nation, the process is that all overtime hours must be approved in advance of working them. And so there would be conversations between the employee and the supervisor regarding the work that's required. And if overtime is part of that requirement, then that would be approved by the supervisor, the authorizing manager, because at the end of the day, that's the authorizing manager's budget. And they would be responsible for authorizing that overtime.
Robin, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, and you know, we have these clear expectations. So there's really nothing that should arise to working from home unless you have some sort of big thing comes out of the blue. There should not really be a need to work overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Again, our expectations are lowered because of this. The people we work with, like government and all that kind of other stuff, their expectations are lowered as well. Our focus really is on the community itself, on making sure that people's needs are being met and things like that. So we do have folks who will work on occasion, work overtime, but dealing specifically with this emergency. And like Cathy said, it has to be pre-approved
Mm-hmm.
as per policy.
Thanks. The next question is, some essential staff are required pay while working under within the COVID-19 pandemic. Do we top up their rate of pay?
I think that's a great question. Oh, sorry.
No, it was.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, please repeat it. I didn't hear the whole thing.
Essential staff are requesting hazard pay while working under COVID-19. Do they get a top up on their regular rate of pay?
No, what we're doing here at Namgis is we talk to people and ask if they wish to help during the pandemic, and so they're taken away from their regular jobs in some cases, but we don't offer a hazard like danger pay per se. It's what we're doing is if they don't feel like they feel safe enough to participate in some of this work, like testing people, for example. Then that's fine. We will find someone, but we don't have anything that speaks to the provision of hazard pay.
And I think that this is a great example of how no two nations are alike and will approach the situation differently. And at Fort Nelson First Nation, we've put in an emergency office closure policy now, and of course it's been a reactive measure in reaction to this current situation that we're experiencing. And certainly the first 4 weeks were like being in triage state. And so now with our policy in place, we have implemented what we call a shift premium. And that would be for our essential service workers who are required to work in the physical workplace during the COVID-19 pandemic, but prior to, like, during the period where it's not business as usual. So once we're back to business as usual, that shift premium will be removed or rescinded.
Wow. Aren't you generous?
All right, next question is for Robin. You spoke a bit about mindfulness with staff. Can you give a bit of information regarding how you go about sharing these practices with your staff? Are they done in team meetings, or are there any other ways that you discuss that with your staff?
Yeah, the easiest way is to do exactly that via team meetings, things like that. So what it takes is what we do here at Namgis is we took the supervisory staff. Anyone who supervises people are taught not only for themselves but for the people who work under them the importance of mindfulness meditation, and then how it's important in the workplace. And then what we do is we do it as a group supervisor training session, and then they in turn they talk about it in their staff meetings. Yeah, it's a really wonderful thing. You could practice mindful meditation in 1 minute, you know, a couple times during the day. It's really wonderful. Yeah. Helps to clear the mind.
The next question is, do you have a return to work plan? Will everyone return at the same time, or are you planning on doing a phased approach?
Namgis First Nation, that's on our plate now. When I talk to the band administrator here, it's talking, okay, so we've got the EOC, we've got all that kind of stuff, wonderful stuff done. We're rotating staff. Some people non-essential are staying home, all this kind of wonderful things. But now we have to plan for the return. It's just in the beginning stages now. But it is on my plate now to start piecing together a return to work plan. It's going to be, like I said in the beginning of the presentation, it's going to be a longer term thing. This thing is going to go on for some time. It's not, we're not expecting to resume normal operations for some time. So it's really important that we start planning for this. There's going to be people with PTSD, people scared to come back to work. So we have to make sure that we've done the things we need to do to ensure that people, first of all, are safe when they get back to the workplace and feel safe. So I see this staff rotating, you know, different shifts, different stuff like that. I see that continuing for the immediate future for sure. But we're just in the beginning stages of that.
Yeah, and we are as well. We're just now in conversation with our Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee with respect to putting together a return to work policy and what that's going to look like, as well as, you know, the return to work forms and, you know, how will the employer respond if someone feels that it's an unsafe place to return to work. And so basically putting together, you know, a return to work survey and, you know, having HR do an investigation with the individual to find out, you know, what their concerns are and how to mitigate those issues.
It's also incumbent upon the supervisor then to listen, because some of these fears are real. To the individual to kind of assuage some of those fears and to say, here's what we've done to ensure your safety. We do a deep clean daily. We wipe down the doorknob. We do all this kind of wonderful stuff. We limit people coming into the office, you know, so all that kind of stuff.
Thanks so much. We have just a couple minutes left. I'm going to just do one more question. Our office is in lockdown where staff are in place during office hours, but membership and others are not allowed inside the administrative building. Are you doing the same?
Yeah. Yes, so we're doing the same thing. So the buildings are in lockdown and there are limited numbers of employees allowed in the building. And so it's following a schedule. So the building manager, so we have several department buildings. And so the manager of that building is aware of who will be entering the building, when they will be entering. And we also have policies and procedures in place for, you know, disinfecting yourself into the building and out of the building. And so that's very important as well right now in terms of maintaining individual workspaces, is, you know, cleaning and disinfecting your own areas.
Ditto.
All right. Thank you. Thank you both so much. And I want to apologize if any part of the webinar has been a little choppy for myself and or the panelists. My internet is a little wonky today. But thank you both to our panelists for joining us. You guys have provided a wealth of information, very helpful right now during this time. As I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded. So it will be available on our YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube and search First Nations Public Service Secretariat, there'll be a number of other webinars with my face probably in every single one of them, so go ahead and check them out. We also have the Facebook group, the First Nation Administrators Network. It is all the members of that group are people who work in a First Nation administration. It's another platform for information sharing, so I encourage you to go join the group. Robin and Cathy, I'm not sure if you are members, but please go join as well. We will have a survey that's going to pop up after this webinar with from SurveyMonkey. So please fill that out. We are going to continue to do these, but the best way to do that is with your feedback. So I encourage you to complete that short survey. That would be really great. And I think those are my only updates for now. It's been a lovely webinar Wednesday, and I hope you all stay healthy and safe out there.
Thank you.
Yes, please stay safe.
Stay safe.
Thanks so much, you two. Have a great day.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.